Hi, my name's Paul, and I'm part of the leadership team at King's Church here in Warrington. It's my privilege this week to bring the thought for the week during Holy Week, that week as we lead up to the death and resurrection of Jesus. And what I'd like us to do this week, it's Wednesday as this is released, is to think of what's been going on in Jesus' week so far, and what's going on today. And how might that apply to us in our week here at the end of March, beginning of April in 2021? We remember Palm Sunday very well, don't we? It's such a high point in the Easter story in many ways. People remember that and can picture the crowds gathering, throwing palm leaves all over the floor as Jesus rides into Jerusalem on that donkey which the disciples brought for him, finding it just where he told them it was going to be. It's a picture of celebration, it's a picture of praise and of worship. There's a bit of confusion of what's going on. I've no doubt there are some people who thought that Jesus was coming in to start the violent uprising against the Romans. There are others who undoubtedly wanted to worship him and probably did see him for who he was. And then there were others who just didn't get it at all. Some who were drawn along just by the crowd and that sense of being in that atmosphere. And then others still who just rejected him completely. But Palm Sunday was a really significant day. And then we get Monday. And Monday's a very different day. I've no doubt Monday probably started some people turning against Jesus because we see a different side of his character on Monday. We see that side of Jesus' character where he is forceful, he's bold, he will say what he thinks to make things correct. And he walks into the temple, and when he goes in, he sees that there are money changers there who are just ripping people off, just taking advantage of people who are wanting to go and worship. You see, the temple was there as a picture of God's presence on earth in many ways. And as the people arrived, they can't use the money of the day. They've got to exchange it for temple money. And there were ridiculous exchange rates going on. And then, not only that, they were being oversold, overpriced, I guess, for people to buy things for the sacrifice. I'm not 100% convinced that it's just the fact that money was changing hands that wound Jesus up, that got him so cross. It was actually the fact that it wasn't just money changing hands. It was literally people saying, if you do not give your money here, you cannot worship. And that God will not allow there to be barriers in place for people to come into his presence and to worship. Let's not lose sight that Jesus still takes that very seriously today. So then we have Tuesday. And Tuesday is a really significant day as well, because that's the day when Jesus is asked the question about what's the greatest commandment. And he places a real emphasis on love. He places a real emphasis on loving God and loving people. He places a real emphasis, we'd describe it as up in and out, wouldn't we, here at King's? That sense of loving God, of loving people who are already followers of Jesus, and of loving people who've got no sense of Jesus being on their agenda. That love is so important, and the way that we respond to one another is still very, very high on God's agenda. And then we get to today, Wednesday. What does Jesus do on the Wednesday of Holy Week? You know what? It's quite hard to see, because in the story it just basically puts Jesus in a place of rest with his followers. There's no big stories. There's no big activities. Jesus just rests. This week has been a week of the beginning of lockdown easing, hasn't it? And, maybe off the back of putting the clocks forward as well, maybe you're just tired. Rest. It's part of God's economy. It's part of the way that Jesus lived his life. And as his followers, as his disciples, his imitators, if you like, surely we should follow his lead. Make sure we do take time to rest as well as work. And then the next few days will carry on, won't they? We'll see the Last Supper, where Jesus institutes this celebration, this remembrance of his death and resurrection. We'll see Good Friday, the day of his crucifixion, when the enemy thought he'd won, but it was the biggest sign of victory that God has ever shown. Easter Saturday, another day of just very little happening, of rest and of downtime. It was Sabbath after all. And then coming soon, Resurrection Sunday, when Jesus rises from the dead and shows the world that he is the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords, and that even death can't have victory over him. So this Easter time, Why don't you celebrate with us here at King's? 10:30 on Good Friday on King's Anywhere, 10:30 on Easter Sunday on King's Anywhere, on Facebook and on YouTube. Come along and let's celebrate this incredible story together of Jesus, the last week of his earthly life before his death and his resurrection, which changed everything forever. Have a great, great Holy Week.